right. Hello. Welcome to episode 18 of Plays Well with Others, our podcast about building and participating in effective teams while actually enjoying it. So if you're still here with us, if you're joining us for the first time, or you've been here for all 17 episodes so far, welcome. Go ahead and give us a pause, give us a like, subscribe, share, all of that good stuff. No matter what platform you're on, if you're on your iPhone or your computer and you're listening through a podcast app, welcome. Glad to talk with you. But if you're watching us on YouTube in sparkling 1080p, go ahead, give us a like, drop us a comment. All of it's really appreciated, and it helps us stay engaged with you and understand what you like to see, what you like to hear, and help us deliver more of that. So, we've been trying a new format lately. It's been more episodic, more focused on segments rather than the long editorial, almost like lecture style. We want to try to stay more engaged with you, our listeners. We also want to be more conversational between Jess and myself. So, how we want to kick this off is kind of a story time, so to speak. So everybody gather around and sit on the circle rug, and we'll have a story time here. But so where we wanted to talk about this week was around authenticity in content creation. And I've had a lot of conversations recently since I started making my own content, since we started Plays Well with Others, and we've just been putting ourselves out there on the internet more, making cool stuff and putting it out. And it's that conversation has really been, how do you balance your authentic self, being who you really are, who I really am, who Jess really is, with someone that's entertaining, or someone that looks like a content creator. And I've not answered that well, but I'm going to attempt to answer it here, because I know that you all have opinions, and I know Jess is going to have opinions too. But the key thing that keeps coming up for me is, I really am the persona that I put on here, just maybe less so. Like, I'm an introvert. I'm okay with that. And it takes a lot of effort to be on camera. It takes a lot of effort to talk to people, whether in person or digital. And some might argue it takes more effort to talk to people digitally, because you don't get all the same interactions in body language. And I'm trying to do body language here while not bumping into my microphone. So that takes some coordination and some dedication. So kicking off story time here, I wanted to kind of share that perspective. Content creation isn't easy. And I had one person reach out to me that they said, "Hey, found your content on LinkedIn, found the podcast. It's really cool. I really love what you're doing. I could never do that. I'd be way too scared." And I sat there for a second. I said, whoa. Am I supposed to be scared? Uh-oh. What? I didn't know that. And it went through this whole spiral of conversation in my head of, wow, why would I be scared? It hadn't occurred to me. Now maybe there's a reason. And it all led back to this conversation of authenticity and how I am, why I'm doing this, really, around producing content.
Yeah. It's funny because the whole, should I be scared? Wait, am I doing something wrong if I'm not scared? It's really funny because it does very much resonate with me as well. So our first 2 or 3 episodes, I was very petrified because I was thinking of it as talking to an audience, as, oh, there are people watching us. We have to, think about this. We have to, be aware of the audience involvement. And honestly, after episode 3, I was like, I'm just chatting with Andrew. It just became a conversation, and it just became us talking as we talk in meetings at work. For the past 10 years, we've worked together. We have exchange of ideas. We hear each other out. We, weigh in on topics or interesting tidbits that the other person has. And this kind of just became a more of an open forum for that, rather than our conversations being dictated by our work, it became dictated by what have we learned and what do we want to share and how do we think we could help people engage in their work better. And I mean, it's a little bit more fulfilling, but it's very much just, it's a conversation. It's, just us talking. So I haven't had to kind of think about, am I being my authentic self? It's just been more like, yeah, this is what we do. We just talk.
Yeah, I had to go through a lot of effort to get over I don't think it's imposter syndrome. I don't think that's the right word, but it's the mentality of, why would someone want to listen to content that I produce? Like that was a challenge. And, I've had some good support through, people that have done it already and went through the same process. And then people that are still doing it, reaching out and kind of offering their not accolades, but their support and their like, hey, I know this is freaking hard.
Yeah.
But we talked about in episode 17, we talked about artificial intelligence. We talked about digital transformation, kind of specifically wrapped up around AI. And I had an interesting thought just now, actually. So, Jess, this is a complete surprise to you, that when you introduce AI into content creation, there is kind of a challenge around authenticity. And we had the example last week in story time about educators that had gone two different directions around artificial intelligence. One that says, no, this is bad. And one that says, okay, this is here. We have to learn it. We have to learn to engage with it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your thought is as you start introducing artificial intelligence, as the world moves on and progresses. How do you continue to engage the humanity of yourself and continue making things that are authentic, even if they've been thought of or spoken into being by AI?
So I've always considered myself a creative person. My parents are both, my father's an artist. My mom, she's a chef, but I think there's a lot of artistry that goes into being a chef as well. A lot of creativity that goes into being a chef as well. So I've always kind of thought of myself as a creative person. And when I collaborate with other people, there's an energy that enters the room and you kind of feed off of each other and you can get to something even more amazing by having that interactive conversation. I'm not like a creative genius though that can come up with these just unique, incredible ideas out of the blue. My creativity comes in the form of collaboration. I'm not going to be cream of the crop when it comes to creative. I'm just a creative collaborator. I can help you refine your ideas. I can help you enhance what you're doing. That's going to be where my level goes. And I don't think that changes really at all when it comes to AI. There's still a base model that's being produced, right? The AI maybe comes up with this, and it's the launching off place. But I think where humans in general are going to excel is taking something that's created here and looking at it from these different angles and seeing things that maybe the original creator, the AI in this case, wouldn't have envisioned because they don't have the unique perspective of that person who's participating. So in my opinion, it's just a different starting off point. It's just a different jumping off point.
Yeah, and I agree. I think what's interesting is, as I've thought back over my life, there have been points in my life where I would have said, "Oh, I've got ChatGPT that will write this essay for me. I'm 100% taking it." And as I've progressed, like when I was in school particularly, my whole mission was, how do I get through this, learn some things, but also, go have fun and hang out with my friends and do stuff that college students want to do. And as a result, Wolfram Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha, the real MVPs of my calculus career. But when you start looking at AI, you can really leverage the tools in a way that we haven't been able to in the past if you stay engaged. So like the story that you told last episode about the educator that's saying, you know
Yeah.
what, you're going to have to write a paper, and I know you're going to use ChatGPT or similar. You're going to
So
use
let's
it
do it well.
in the assignment path, and you're going to give me prompts. That's going to be a skill before, well, it
Hmm.
already is. And if you
It
look on,
is.
yeah, if you look on LinkedIn, there's, every third person posts, here's my top 10 chat prompts for doing market ops or whatever. So I think as trying to gather authenticity around AI, you go through this process. It's very similar. You have to build engagement. Do I care about this thing that I'm making? And if I do, then it's just a matter of how do I use the tools more effectively.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is just my ADHD brain or if other people experience similar things, but when I have like a big presentation I need to put together, if I have this big proposal that I'm trying to work on, I will open up PowerPoint or a notes app or whatever it is that I'm using, and I'll just like stream of consciousness throw things down. I'll pull in quotes from articles that I thought were compelling. I'll put in, maybe, oh, Andrew said this and that got me thinking about this, and I'll just stream of consciousness put all this stuff together. And then once I have a lot of words on paper, I kind of segment them out into different categories. Like, well, this kind of makes sense for like, why should we do this? And this kind of makes sense for like, these are the risks of not doing it, or like, this is a really good value statement. And I'll kind of segregate out all my stream of consciousness thoughts, and I'll just walk away and I'll let it just sit there in the back of my brain. I'm not actively thinking about it. I'm not engaging with it in the forefront of my brain, but it just kind of like sits there. And what I've noticed is that if I give myself a day or two to just sit with the ideas, when I come back to it and engage with it again, I have a whole new perspective, and it can flow out of me in a way that I was not expecting it to happen. And all of a sudden I've got this presentation that's coherent and, it follows this progressive path of building into an idea, and I have ideas on how I wanted to visualize this that just kind of come as I sit with these ideas for a longer period of time. And I think ChatGPT can help us take that first step, getting us prepared for kind of that evolution of ideas that we pull together at the end. Because during that stream of consciousness, I'm looking at articles, I'm talking to people, I'm, trusted sources that I, throw ideas off of, I'm consulting with them. And it's all part of this ideation phase of coming to wrap my own brain around what I'm trying to present. And I think this is just another tool that can go into that ideation phase for me.
I think that's generally how a lot of us approach building something. I I've not yet come to terms with that because I'm kind of a bulldog about first draft. So I'll throw it down and not like it, and then just start hacking at it until I accept it. I can't do anymore, and then I'll walk away and I'll come back and it'll be better. But
Yeah.
there are there are a few different tools out there that I've yet to use. I'm trying to come to terms with them, but I think Mem is one of them. There's a few out there that are kind of like notes apps, but you can throw all of those stream of consciousness notes out there, throw in screenshots and photos and data points and tables and whatever, and then have the AI parse through that, OCR through it, and generate summaries. Another good one is like,
That's kind of a cool idea. So it kind of gets you in between the first draft and the finished product. It kind of helps
right.
propel you there.
Well, that's one of the major selling points of machine learning, in particular of unsupervised learning, is that it recognizes patterns. So if you throw a ton of data at a machine learning model and say, you know what, I don't know the significance of all this data. I know that it's clean, I know that I've removed duplicates, and I know that it's generally representative of reality. So go tell me where the patterns lie. And that model can come back and say, you know what, there's high degrees of confidence then when value A is above 50, then value B is true, or that your signal is true. So it tells you, you know what, I don't know why, but when it's raining, you are 20% more likely to fund a loan. it's up to the person, and talking about authenticity and the human value, it's up to the person to go back and figure out, well, is that real, or is that just kind of a causation correlation scenario? But I do appreciate the approach of understanding as a person. We don't often get from A to B in the most linear of fashions. It's always, here's stream of consciousness, here's everything I know, here's all of my notes, all my details, and then we'll go up here for a little bit, and then we'll come down here, and sometimes we'll go get almost to point B, wipe it all out and start over because I don't like it. But if you can leverage technology, and we'll go back to general technology, it doesn't have to be AI, but if you can leverage technology to help you reach A to B sooner, more effectively, more coherently, then you're going to be better off, and that's not something you have to be afraid of. Now, when we see Sarah Connor walk through the door at Walmart, then yeah, maybe be scared. Maybe that's the time. But for now, take advantage of it, because the people that don't take advantage of it are going to be the ones that get left behind.
And, it's always fun to see what kind of chaos is produced, like just beautiful chaos is produced from these AIs, whether you're doing like the photo imaging one where it's transitioning you into some sort of a, AI generated piece of artwork where you accidentally have 7 fingers, but everything else is beautiful. I think there's, it's only going to evolve from here. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get more precise, but there's still that element of it can produce a product, but it still needs a human to review it and confirm that these things are accurate and confirm that the quotes that are in there are accurate, or the conclusion that was drawn is actually a valid conclusion. I mean, you see these situations where they'll feed stories into an AI and go, okay, now you need to write a young adult romance. and it'll do an amazing job, but there's like 2 things in the story that you're like, that's horrifying. You're just like, it's that uncanny valley of writing where it's like you're so close to writing like a person, but you missed it in some very, very concerning ways.
Well, it's funny because before we started this episode, so I went over to ChatGPT and I was toying with this idea of what if we let OpenAI generate our entire podcast for this episode. And so I gave it a prompt. I said, we're a 2-host podcast about building effective organizational leadership and digital transformation. We tend to be more lighthearted and entertaining, yet informative. Generate an outline for a 30-minute episode. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's an absolute wall of text. But the title it gives me is Unleashing Leadership Magic, Navigating the Digital Transformation Maze. And shortly thereafter, I said my next prompt was less formal. New title it gave me is Leadership and Digital Transformation. Let's get this party started. So in terms of authenticity,
the maze. Let's get this party started.
In terms of authenticity, ChatGPT went from suit and tie to 3 bourbons in with a lampshade on its head.
No longer concerned if it's actually bourbon.
Nope, not concerned at all. It's about to get dangerous, and I'm halfway curious if I prompt it again.
Can you say even less formal?
Okay.
It's just like slurred at that point.
It is kind of just slurred. There's just fewer bullet points now, and it's adding interesting adjectives. So rather than talk about the wild ride of digital transformation in today's business world, we've got talk about the epic battle organizations face in the realm of digital transformation. This says the same thing.
That's the name of the episode for today is Epic Battle.
Epic Battle. We've got jaw-dropping surprises. I can sprinkle in pop culture references or comparisons. It says I can. I don't actually know any. And the pop culture references that I have are about 15 years old.
Sorry, ChatGPT. You have too high of expectations of me.
Yes. I don't know if I told you this, but I am a software engineer, so... Uh,
The most recent reference I'm going to be able to make is like 10 years ago. Is that okay?
I mean, I can make a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reference if that helps. I
For
don't know
sure
that it actually
helps.
helps. But
Is it
so,
something about fighting Shredder? Because I'm in.
segment 3, Leadership Unmasked. Yep. All right. So I think there's value
Like
here
Zorro.
somewhere. Z for Zorro. I think there's some value to this as we talk through. I know we're sort of we're joking around here, but when you look at the impact that AI has on creation, maybe it's content, and content's a wide umbrella. It covers anything from articles all the way through to videos and TikToks and what have you. But AI can only go so far now. It can only tell you what it knows, and it can only relay what it knows, which is an amalgamation of other information, things that people have already written. So when you talk about authenticity, that's still the value that you people provide. The computer can't necessarily generate original thought. Now, again, Sarah Connor, et cetera, et cetera. But when you leverage AI, which you absolutely should, and there's a couple of services and lists that I've seen people publish that have a list of AI tools that I'll try to dig up and share in the show notes. But when you leverage AI, it only gets you 80% of the way. That last 20% is where you provide value as a person that the computer can't. It's the emotion, that's the real creation, the spark of life that the computer doesn't have.
Well, and I think part of what you provide being authentic that a computer can't provide is you can talk about failure. You can talk about being bad at something and doing something poorly and experiences where you have made mistakes. I mean, everybody's read those horrifying stories about, hey, I accidentally deleted the database for my entire company my first day on the job. Like just these awful mistakes that humans make. And one of the things that, I mean, I think if any of us are talking to someone and they're willing to share a story about a failure that they've had or a mistake that they've made, it does show you a part of their authentic self that maybe Instagram or podcasts don't always show because we've got perfect lighting that makes our skin look great and we're giving our best 30 minutes of our day to this podcast versus what's actually happening in real life is going to be a little bit less perfect, a little bit less well lit, if you will. But all of that to say that this is something that you as a human can provide is real world experience, real world mistakes, and that does two things, right? It one informs others of things not to do. Hey, don't delete a database. Don't assume that there's a backup, etc. The second thing that it does, though, is it gives you community because you're also going to make mistakes. And it's going to be really helpful for your mental health to be able to talk to someone or hear about someone who's also made a horrible mistake.
Yeah, and one of the first videos that I ever recorded, it took me, holy mackerel, like 24 takes. It was miserable. Like, look at the camera. Okay, get all the way through. It's a minute long. Can't even get a minute out without flubbing a word or screwing up or something. But I got to take 24 takes before I published the thing. But the video was about code reviews and getting used to being uncomfortable, getting used to failure, getting used to not being perfect. And
Yeah.
the point was, whether you're a new dev or a senior dev that's done this for 10 years or you're a new manager, you've taken on new responsibilities, there's always a learning curve. And that learning curve often feels like, why am I not good at this yet? Like, why do I suck so bad? It's okay because everybody goes through it. So the idea behind artificial intelligence, at least as it stands now, is let's see how much we can shorten that learning curve. Let's see how much we can offload from our brain to free up those executive cycles for higher order thinking, things that we have to put together patterns that are more abstract. And for now, the computer's not really great at developing these longer term strategies that involve people and emotion and chaos. maybe that changes, but for now, that's kind of where we live as people. And as much as I can throw off to the computer to process in the background, the better, so that I don't have to worry about that aspect of failure. I can worry about the bigger failures, which that also sounds terrible, but it's kind of the reality of the thing. As we get better and we grow in responsibility, then the risks are going to be higher, the stakes are higher.
So is it terrible that I'm like super millennial and absolutely thought of a Harry Potter reference when you said that?
I think that's
Where
fair.
Dumbledore was talking about how he was, super smart, but that meant that his mistakes were also equally super huge.
Yeah, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but TikTok has decided to show me a whole bunch of Harry Potter conspiracies, and
What?
yeah, it. There are people that have a lot of time on their hands that read very deeply into Harry Potter lore and have some theories about intentionality around the series and what actually happened and some motivations. Won't dig into that, but
All right.
I'll share them.
We'll come back next week
offline.
for more on Harry Potter. No, just kidding.
Please don't. I mean, do come back next week. But
Yeah, come back next week. Just don't expect Harry Potter.
right. So we're reaching towards the end of our time and keeping in practice of the segments that we've been doing, ending with a shout out segment or a creator share segment. I'm going to go ahead. Last week I told you about Lex Friedman, who's doing podcasts about AI and computer science and data science and all manner of cool things. This week I want to go back from the more logical engineering side back to the creative side. Not to say computer science isn't creative, but a little more right-brained. There's a guy that I used to rock climb with a lot of years ago, and he and his wife have since become expats and travel the world and do cool content creation stuff. He's a photographer and a really, really talented photographer. So his name's Zach Leon, and cool guy. Just happened to fall out of touch because he travels the world now, taking pictures of stuff and publishing photo books. But I'll share his Instagram down below, and I'll share some of his content because I think it's really cool, and it's really, really nice to see somebody that has a different perspective on life, and particularly one that's a different perspective in a lot of beautiful places.
That sounds actually kind of cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. All right. So I just yesterday watched a TED Talk by someone named Megan Smith, and it was called "The Hidden History of Women in Tech," and it was really interesting. In the beginning, she kind of talks about some of the names that you might be familiar with, like Ada Lovelace and Hedy Lamarr. The real women behind Hidden Figures, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, some really just famous women in technology that honestly have gotten famous in recent years. They really weren't famous within their time periods. And in this TED Talk, she shows a video, this kind of semi-documentary about one of the first software companies where they sold software, and basically they were laughed out of business almost, laughed out of a lot of people's offices because they were like, oh, we're going to sell software, and everyone's like, software's free, you sell hardware. And they saw a future of, I think we can sell software, and I think we can be really successful with it. And it was primarily all women in the company for many, many years, actually until England or Great Britain introduced some legislation that required diversity in a workplace, and so they had to hire some men. But by the time that happened, there were like 7 women in the company who were like millionaires because of just how they've been able to grow that company and what they were able to do. It was really interesting. And, being a woman in technology myself, I really enjoy learning about, the people who came before me in this industry and how they've influenced it in ways that are still very hidden.
Absolutely. And so that does sound interesting. I'm kind of curious to check that out, especially for no particular reason. My German Shepherd dog, when we got her, my wife and I, my wife likes the A names because she's Angela, I'm Andrew. She likes to name things with an A, and so we had to
Oh
come
my
up
gosh, I
with
literally
a
never noticed that. That's so cute.
yeah. So we had to come up with a. My requirement was it needed to be a German name, and Angela's requirement was it needed to start with an A. And so obviously there's some hot button A names that are German that you can't use anymore.
Yep, don't do that one.
Nope. But what we did find was Ada Lovelace. So
Yeah.
not pronouncing it correctly, but we live in Tennessee, so I get a pass. But my dog Ada is named after Ada Lovelace, and I've loved all of the stories about how she was working on the Babbage machine and how basically the mother of computer science came before we even considered digital. We considered the ability to have bits in a electronic space as opposed to mechanical. So that's really cool.
I feel like that name suits you. I think that name suits your family well as well, because I've also heard you talk about the combination of music and development. And there's kind of a tie-in between those two. And Ada Lovelace also explored that in a lot of her work as well, which is pretty fascinating.
Well, maybe we'll do an episode on technicians or engineers of the past. That might be kind of fun. But we've come up on time, so we're out of time for this episode. But we'll put all those links down in the show notes. Drop us a line if you're watching us on YouTube. Let us know if you go engage with any of the creators that we've listed here. Drop them a comment and tell them where you came from. Let them know about us and the fact that we like what they're doing. But again, this has been Plays Well with Others, episode 18. Thanks for listening.